Okay, for our next question, we are going to be working with line segments. So what that means is we have 2 points. We have one point at -1, 7. So let's put that point here. I'm going to label that -1, 7. And I have another point. Let's put it here. This is going to be 2, -2. We are going to want to find a few things about the line that goes straight from this point to this point. And our line stops after that point because it is a line segment, not an actual line. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to find the gradient. Now, to find the gradient or the slope, we basically want to calculate how much is this curve going up or down by over how much our curve is going across by. And we do have a formula for that. This is also one you need to memorize. So we have y equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. This basically means we're going to calculate the difference between our y coordinates here and here. That's going to be what our y is on the top, and then we're going to calculate the distance between our x coordinates as well. So when you have 2 points, each point is going to have an x part and a y part. Once you have x and y there, all you need to do is choose one point to be your first, choose one point to be your second, and then take those numbers and sub them back into your equation. So here our y2 is equal to -2, and then we're going to minus y1, which is 7, so -2 minus 7. Then we have x2, so +2, minus -1. When you have 2 negative signs like this, that is always going to give you a positive. So we can rewrite this as -2 minus 7 over 2 plus 1. So -2 minus 7, that gives us -9. 2 plus 1 gives us 3 here. Now, if you left it like this, that would give you the process marks up to this point. This is okay. But if you can notice, we can simplify this. We can make these numbers smaller, and we always want to do that if we can. So both 9 and 3 fit into 3. So I can divide the top and the bottom by 3. That's going to give me -9 divided by 3, that's -3. And 3 divided by 3 just gives me 1. So that's the same as saying -3 over 1, or we can also write that just as -3. So there we go, we found our gradient. Next, what we want to do with this line is we want to find the midpoint. So the midpoint is the point on our graph that is exactly in between the first coordinate and the second coordinate here. And to do that, we are going to find basically the averages of our x and y coordinates. So our equation looks like this. We have x1 plus x2 over 2. So adding up the x's, dividing them by 2, and then we're going to add up the y's, and we're going to divide them by 2 as well. So let's do that really quickly. We have -1 plus 2 over 2, and then we have 7 plus -2 over 2. So -1 plus 2, that gives us 1, or 1/2, and 7 plus -2, a plus and a minus together, that gives us a minus. So 7 minus 2, that would be 5 over 2. We get 0.5 and 2.5. I would give you a mark if you left it as fraction. I would also give you the mark if you turned it into a decimal. Both work, both are fine. For the third part, and this is probably the most difficult part, I have my 2 points, if you remember. So -1, 7 to -2, and this is my line connecting them. Now we want to find the distance of this line, or basically the length of this line here. To help us out with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pretend that this is actually a triangle. Because we have a right angle here, I'm going to write that in as well. So now we have a right-angled triangle. And if you remember, we have a way of calculating the hypotenuse of a right-angled triangle called Pythagoras' theorem. So I'm going to write that down. Pythagoras' theorem says c squared equals a squared plus b squared. So what's a, b, and c on this triangle? Well, this is a, this is b, And then our hypotenuse, the distance we're trying to find, that is going to be C right there. So what is this then? How do we find this? Well, this technically is the ups and downs. Continuing on, here's our Pythagoras' theorem. We want to find A. So what I am going to do is I'm going to figure out what is the difference between this point and this point height-wise. Now height up and down, that is going to be our y's, correct? So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the 7, we're going to look at the -2, and we're going to think, how many points are between 7 and -2? And we can do that by finding the difference of those two. So I'm going to do 7 minus -2. And if you remember, we did that up at the top. 2 minuses make a positive, 7 plus 2 gives you 9. So that means the distance between this top point here, that's going to be 9, or A equals 9. Okay? On the bottom here, we want to find the difference between the horizontal ones. So the distance between our x's, -1 and +2. We can do that again, -1 minus +2. That gives us -3, but because it is distance, we could also just say that the distance between the two there is 3. So our distance for A is 9, our distance for B is 3, and we want to find C. So all we're going to do is we're going to take A and B, we're going to put them into the formula. So C squared equals 9 squared plus 3 squared. So then we have C squared equals 9 squared is 81, plus 3 squared is 9. That gives us 81 plus 9, that's going to give us 90. We take the root of 90, and when we do that on our calculator, we are going to get roughly, first time I've had to use a calculator. You will be given a calculator, but only for questions like this with square roots in it. That's going to give me roughly 9.48. I'm going to round to 1 decimal place, so I'm going to leave it as 9.5. So our distance is 9.5. Distance equals 9.5. There's the question solved. Pythagoras' theorem for this one. If you cannot remember that, I have also put a formula that uses Pythagoras' theorem on your actual review sheets. Do not worry about it if you do not find it, though.